My daughter stood up in that courtroom and laughed right in my face. Her husband Darnell wouldn't even look at me. They thought they had me cornered. An old black man in overalls and work boots. No lawyer. No defense. Just their signed papers saying I'd lost my mind. But what Monique didn't know was that 35 years ago, I stood in that exact same spot. Not as the defendant, as the judge. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from, so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. It all started 6 months earlier, when my brother Willie passed away. Willie was my best friend. We grew up in the same house on Peachtree Street, went to the same church, married sisters who became best friends themselves. When Mama died, Willie moved back into the old family house, fixed it up, made it beautiful again. He spent 40 years working as a paralegal, helping folks in our community who couldn't afford fancy lawyers. He believed everybody deserved justice, rich or poor. The day of Willie's funeral, the whole community showed up. Black folks from 3 counties came to pay respects. The church was packed. People stood outside in their Sunday best, fanning themselves in the August heat. Willie had touched so many lives. During the service, I looked around for Monique, my only child, the daughter I raised after her mama passed when she was just 12 years old. She wasn't there. She didn't come to her uncle's funeral, the uncle who paid for her college education, the uncle who walked her down the aisle when she married Darnell, because she said she wanted me to just enjoy the ceremony. Looking back now, I see what that really meant. She was already cutting me out. After the burial, Willie's lawyer pulled me aside. His name was Porter. Good man. Known him for 30 years. He handed me an envelope. "Willie left everything to you, Clarence," he said. "The house, the savings, the land your grandfather bought back in 1945. It's all yours now." I couldn't believe it. That land was worth something serious now. Developers had been circling for years, wanting to build condos. Willie always refused, but the offer they made last year, $2.3 million. Willie kept that letter. He showed it to me once, laughing about how Granddaddy's 40 acres of Georgia clay was now worth more than we'd make in 10 lifetimes. "Why didn't he split it between me and his kids?" I asked Porter. Porter looked uncomfortable. "He said your daughter might come around asking questions. He wanted me to tell you something." He paused. "He said Monique called him 3 times last year, each time asking about his will, each time trying to convince him that you were getting old, that you couldn't handle money anymore, that she should be the one to manage everything when he passed." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Willie told her where to go," Porter continued. "In not so polite terms. He said any grandniece of his who'd talk about her own father that way didn't deserve a dime from him." I drove home in silence that day. I'd been living simple for the past decade. After I retired from the bench, I bought a small farm about 40 minutes outside the city. 10 acres, nothing fancy. I raised chickens, grew vegetables, wore overalls most days. Drove a 1998 pickup truck that ran just fine. Spent my mornings fishing and my evenings on the porch with my neighbor Otis, playing checkers and talking about everything and nothing. I hadn't practiced law in 10 years. Most people in my rural community had no idea I used to be Judge Clarence Thompson, the man who handled some of the biggest cases in state history, the judge who sent corrupt politicians to prison, the judge who made the Atlanta Journal-Constitution 3 times for landmark rulings on civil rights cases. I was just old man Clarence now, and I liked it that way. But that inheritance changed everything. 2 weeks after Willie's funeral, Monique called me. First time I'd heard her voice in almost 2 years. "Daddy," she said, her voice sweet as honey. Too sweet. "I heard about Uncle Willie. I'm so sorry I couldn't make the funeral. Darnell and I were out of the country. Lies came easy to her now. I'd seen her Instagram post from that same weekend. She was in Miami, South Beach, living it up while her uncle was lowered into the ground. I was thinking, she continued, maybe Darnell and I should come visit you. It's been too long, and we need to talk about your situation. My situation? I kept my voice even. Daddy, you're 72 years old, living alone on that farm. What if something happens to you? What if you fall? What if you forget to take your medicine? Darnell and I have been talking, and we think you should move in with us. We can sell that farm, get you set up nice and comfortable. There it was, the real reason for the call. I'm doing just fine, baby girl, I said. Don't need anybody worrying about me. But Daddy, Monique. I let a little steel creep into my voice, the voice I used to use in the courtroom. I said I'm fine. She went quiet. When she spoke again, the sweetness was gone. We're coming to visit whether you like it or not. This weekend. We need to discuss your future. She hung up before I could respond. That Saturday, they showed up in a black Mercedes. Darnell wore a suit that probably cost more than my truck. Monique had on heels that sank into my dirt driveway. They looked at my farm like it was a landfill. Daddy, this is worse than I thought, Monique said, waving her hand at my chickens. You're living like what? I asked. Like a man who's content? Darnell stepped forward. He'd always been slick. The kind of brother who smiled in your face while plotting behind your back. Mr. Thompson, Monique and I are concerned. This lifestyle. At your age, it's not safe, and frankly, sir, we think you might be showing signs of cognitive decline. I almost laughed, but I kept my face neutral, played the part they expected. Cognitive decline, I said slowly, letting my words drawl. That's a big word, son. I saw the look they exchanged. Satisfaction. They thought they had me pegged. The visit lasted 30 minutes. They poked around my house, making notes on their phones, took pictures of my simple furniture, my worn-out boots by the door, my Bible on the kitchen table next to the farmer's almanac, every piece of evidence they needed to paint me as a senile old man. What they didn't see was the locked study upstairs. The room where I kept my law books, my case files, my judicial robes, the room where I still read Supreme Court decisions and wrote legal opinions for my own amusement. After they left, I sat on my porch with Otis. He'd watched the whole thing from his property next door. "Those your people?" he asked. "Unfortunately. They up to something, Clarence. I can smell it from here." Otis was right. He was always right about people. 78 years old and sharp as a tack. We'd been neighbors for 9 years. He knew I liked my privacy, so he never asked too many questions. Good man. The kind of friend Willie would have liked. 3 weeks later, the papers arrived, delivered by a deputy sheriff who looked embarrassed to be at my door. Petition for guardianship and conservatorship, filed by Monique Thompson Hayes and Darnell Hayes. They were taking me to court, claiming I was mentally incompetent, claiming I couldn't manage my own affairs, claiming I needed them to control my money, my property, my life. The hearing was set for 6 weeks out, in the county courthouse, the same courthouse where I'd served for 35 years. I read through the petition carefully. They'd been thorough. They had statements from people who'd seen me around town. Wears dirty overalls. Talks to his chickens. Drives an old truck that barely runs. Lives alone with no modern conveniences. They had a psychiatrist lined up. Dr. Jerome Ellis. I knew Jerome. We'd served on a community board together 15 years ago. Good doctor. But he didn't know who I was anymore. Just like everyone else in this country, he'd forgotten Judge Clarence Thompson. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to fight this petition. I was going to let them hang themselves with it. I was going to walk into that courtroom, playing the exact role they expected me to play. Confused farmer, simple countryman, lost and helpless. And then at exactly the right moment, I was going to show them who I really was. But first, I needed evidence. Real evidence. The kind that would bury them both. I called Otis over that evening. "I need a favor," I said, "and it might get complicated." "Complicated how?" "The kind where you might have to lie to my daughter's face." Otis grinned. His gold tooth caught the sunset. "Now we're talking. I had 6 weeks to become the best actor of my life. 6 weeks to convince everyone that Judge Clarence Thompson was dead and gone. That all that remained was a confused old farmer who didn't know his own name half the time. But here's what Monique and Darnell didn't understand. A man doesn't spend 35 years reading people in a courtroom without learning how to play whatever role the situation demands. The first part of my plan was simple. Let them watch me. Let them gather their evidence. Give them exactly what they wanted to see. I started going into town more often, wearing my rattiest overalls, the ones with the patches on the knees. I'd shuffle into the grocery store and ask the cashier 3 times what day it was. I'd count my change slow, fumbling with the coins, squinting at them like I couldn't quite figure out which was which. Word spreads fast in a small town, especially in our community, where everybody knows everybody's business. Mrs. Patterson from the church called Monique, told her she was worried about me, said I'd forgotten what day the Sunday service was, showed up on Tuesday morning knocking on the church door asking where everybody went. I knew she called because Monique's lawyer, Curtis Bennett, filed a supplemental report 2 days later, adding Mrs. Patterson's statement to their evidence. Perfect. But while I was playing confused in public, I was doing something else in private. I was investigating, and what I found made my blood run cold. Darnell Hayes wasn't just a manipulative son-in-law. He was a criminal. A sophisticated one, but a criminal nonetheless. I spent 3 weeks digging through public records, court filings, business registrations. The man had left a trail of financial crimes across 2 states. In 2018, he'd been sued by 12 investors who claimed he'd stolen their money through a fake real estate scheme. The case settled out of court, sealed records, but I still had friends in the legal community, friends who owed me favors from my years on the bench. 1 phone call to Judge Valerie Winters, and I had copies of everything. Darnell had promised investors he was buying apartment buildings in Atlanta, took their money, never bought a single property. When they came asking questions, he showed them fake documents, forged contracts, made-up inspection reports. By the time they figured it out, he'd moved the money offshore. He paid them back eventually, enough to make the lawsuit go away. But he never admitted guilt, never faced charges, just slithered away clean. And now he was married to my daughter. Living in a house they couldn't afford, driving cars they leased, wearing clothes they bought on credit. I pulled their financial records, another favor from another friend. They were drowning in debt, $300,000 in credit cards, 2 mortgages underwater, car payments they were already behind on. They didn't just want my inheritance. They needed it, desperately. This wasn't about concern for an old man. This was about survival. Their survival. Around the 3rd week, Monique started calling me regularly, every other day, always asking questions, always prodding. "Daddy, did you remember to pay your electric bill? Daddy, what did you have for breakfast? Daddy, are you taking your blood pressure medicine?" I played along. Sometimes I'd pretend to forget which pills were which. Other times I'd tell her I'd paid bills I hadn't paid, just to make her think I was losing track. Each conversation gave her more ammunition, more evidence that I was slipping, but that wasn't even the worst part. 4 weeks before the hearing, Monique made a mistake. A big one. She got greedy. And greed makes people stupid. Otis came to my house on a Tuesday evening. He looked shaken. "Clarence," he said, "you're not going to believe what just happened. Tell me." "Your daughter showed up at my house an hour ago with an envelope full of cash." My hands tightened on my coffee cup. "How much?" $5,000. Otis pulled the envelope from his jacket. He'd brought it with him. "She said it was a gift, for being such a good neighbor to you, for looking out for you." "What did she want in return?" Otis's jaw clenched. "She wanted me to testify at the hearing, said she needed me to tell the judge that you're not capable of living alone, that I've seen you confused, forgetting things, talking to yourself. She even gave me a script, told me exactly what words to use. Attempted witness bribery, a felony, and she'd done it right in Otis's living room." "Did you take the money?" I asked. "Hell yes, I took it," Otis grinned. "Took it and recorded the whole conversation on my phone, video and audio, crystal clear. Got her saying everything, the bribe, the script, even the part where she said you'd never know the difference because you're too far gone to understand what's happening." I wanted to cry. My own daughter, the little girl I raised, the child I read bedtime stories to, the young woman I put through college. She thought I was too far gone to understand. "Good man," I said to Otis. "That recording just became Exhibit A." But I wasn't done digging. I needed more. I needed something that would destroy any credibility they had left. Something that would make the judge see them for exactly what they were. 2 weeks before the hearing, I found it. I was going through old court records, looking for any other cases Darnell might have been involved in. I found something better. Something worse. In 2020, Darnell had been investigated by the FBI for wire fraud. The case never went to trial. Insufficient evidence. But the investigation report was public record, and what I read made me sick. Darnell had targeted elderly people, specifically elderly black folks in our community. He called them pretending to be from the Social Security Administration, told them their benefits were about to be cut off unless they verified their information, got them to give up their bank account numbers, their Social Security numbers. Then he drained their accounts. The FBI suspected he'd stolen over $200,000 from at least 30 victims, but they couldn't prove it was him. The phone calls were made from burner phones. The money was moved through cryptocurrency. By the time they got close, he'd covered his tracks. My son-in-law was a predator, a man who stole from grandmothers and grandfathers, people who'd worked their whole lives, people who trusted a voice on the phone that sounded like someone who wanted to help. And my daughter had married him. Maybe she didn't know about his crimes, or maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, she was helping him now. Helping him steal from her own father. I sat in my study that night, surrounded by evidence. Bank records, court documents, Otis's recording, Darnell's criminal history. Everything I needed to win this case 50 times over. But I wasn't just going to win. I was going to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. The week before the hearing, Dr. Jerome Ellis came to my farm for the psychiatric evaluation. He was professional, kind even, asked me questions about my daily routine, my memory, my ability to make decisions. I failed every test on purpose. Couldn't remember what year it was. Got confused about simple math problems. Told him I thought Willie was still alive. Said I'd seen him last week at the church. When Dr. Ellis gently reminded me that Willie had passed, I acted shocked, devastated. Like I was hearing the news for the first time. He left looking genuinely concerned. A good man doing his job. He had no idea he was being played. His report came 3 days later. Filed with the court. Patient shows significant signs of cognitive decline, memory impairment, difficulty with basic reasoning. Recommend supervised guardianship. Monique called me that evening. She was crying, fake tears. I could hear them dripping with performance. Daddy, I just read the doctor's report. I'm so sorry, but this is for the best. Darnell and I are going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you're safe. Okay, baby, I said softly, playing my role to perfection. If you say so. The night before the hearing, I laid out my courtroom clothes. Not overalls this time. A suit. The same suit I wore on my last day as a judge. It still fit. I pressed it carefully, shined my dress shoes, went through my evidence one more time. Everything was ready. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that courtroom as one man, and I'd leave as another. But as I was getting ready for bed, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Mr. Thompson? A woman's voice, nervous. Speaking. My name is Keisha Morton. I'm Curtis Bennett's paralegal, the lawyer representing your daughter. She paused, took a breath. I'm calling because I can't stay quiet anymore. What they're doing to you is wrong, and there's something you need to know before you walk into that courtroom tomorrow. My heart started pounding. I'm listening. Your daughter and Mr. Hayes asked Mr. Bennett to file false documents with the court. They wanted him to claim you'd signed a power of attorney years ago, giving them control of your assets, but you never signed anything. They forged it. Mr. Bennett refused, told them that was fraud. They fired him this morning. But they're going to try to submit those documents anyway, through a different lawyer. Someone who won't ask questions. Forgery. Document fraud. This was bigger than I thought. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because my grandmother went through this same thing. Her own children tried to steal everything from her. By the time we figured out what was happening, it was too late. She died in a nursing home, alone, thinking nobody loved her. Keisha's voice cracked. When I saw your case file, I saw her face. I can't let it happen again. Thank you, I said quietly. You just gave me the last piece I needed. I hung up and immediately called my own contact at the courthouse, Antoine Mitchell, the deputy clerk. We'd known each other since he was a kid. His father had been a bailiff in my courtroom for 20 years. Antoine, I said, I need you to do something for me tomorrow, and it's going to sound crazy. Judge Thompson. His voice filled with shock. Is that you? It's me. And tomorrow morning, when I walk into that courtroom, I need you to pretend you've never seen me before in your life. I walked into that courtroom at 9 in the morning wearing my overalls and my old work boots. Shuffled in slow, head down, playing the part one last time. The courtroom was exactly as I remembered it. Same wooden benches, same high ceiling, same spot where I used to sit, elevated above everyone else, looking down at the people whose lives I held in my hands. Judge Valerie Winters was presiding. She sat in my old chair, wore the same robes I used to wear. We'd worked together for 15 years before I retired. Brilliant legal mind, fair, tough. She had no idea the confused old man standing before her used to be her mentor. Monique sat at the petitioner's table with Darnell. She wore a black dress, respectful. Concerned daughter playing her role too. Darnell had his arm around her. Supportive husband. They looked perfect together. Looked like people who genuinely cared. Their new lawyer stood up. Young man. Couldn't have been more than 30. Name was Preston Cole. I'd never heard of him. He probably took the case for the money. Didn't ask too many questions about where his clients got their evidence. Your Honor, Preston began. We're here today because my clients are deeply concerned about their father's welfare. Clarence Thompson is 72 years old. He lives alone on a rural farm with no support system. Recent psychiatric evaluation shows significant cognitive decline. We have multiple witnesses who will testify to his deteriorating mental state. Judge Winters looked at me. Mr. Thompson, do you have legal representation? I shuffled forward, scratched my head. Ma'am, I don't rightly understand what all this is about. My daughter says she's trying to help me, so I guess that's okay. Monique smiled, tears in her eyes. Performance of a lifetime. Your Honor, Preston continued, we also have documentation showing that Mr. Thompson signed a power of attorney in 2019, giving my clients legal authority over his financial decisions. However, due to his current mental state, we believe full guardianship is necessary. He held up papers. The forged power of attorney. Right there. In open court. They were really going to try it. Judge Winters frowned. Mr. Thompson, do you recall signing this document? I squinted at it, moved closer. Took my time. I don't remember signing nothing like that. Your Honor, Preston jumped in. This is exactly what we're talking about. Mr. Thompson's memory is clearly compromised. Let's hear from the witnesses, Judge Winters said. They brought out Dr. Ellis first. He testified about my evaluation, described my memory problems, my confusion, my inability to manage basic tasks, everything he'd written in his report. He believed every word he said. He thought he was helping me. Then they called Mrs. Patterson from the church. Sweet lady, genuinely worried. She told the court about seeing me confused, showing up on the wrong days, forgetting conversations we'd had. Then they made their biggest mistake. They called Otis. My neighbor shuffled to the witness stand, played his part beautifully. Old man, simple farmer, just like me. Preston asked him, Mr. Cooper, how long have you known the respondent? About 9 years now. We're neighbors. And have you noticed any changes in Mr. Thompson's behavior recently? Otis nodded slowly. Well, sir, I have noticed some things. He does seem a bit confused sometimes. Monique leaned forward. This was going exactly how she wanted. Can you give us specific examples? Preston asked. Sure can. Otis pulled out his phone. Like this conversation right here. The one I recorded when Miss Monique came to my house 4 weeks ago. The courtroom went silent. Preston's face went white. Your Honor, I don't know what— Play it, Judge Winters said. Her voice cut through the room like a blade. Otis connected his phone to the courtroom speakers, and then everyone heard it. Monique's voice, crystal clear. Mr. Cooper, I need you to understand how serious this is. My father is not capable of living alone anymore. I need you to testify that you've seen him deteriorating. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to help me save my father's life. And to thank you for being such a good neighbor, I'd like to give you this. Rustling sounds. The envelope. Ma'am, this is $5,000. Consider it a gift for your time, for your trouble, and for your testimony. I'll even help you with what to say. Make it easier for you. The recording ended. The silence in that courtroom was deafening. Monique stood up. Your Honor, I can explain. Sit down, Judge Winters said. Her voice was ice. Mr. Cole, did you know your clients attempted to bribe a witness? Preston looked like he wanted to disappear. No, Your Honor. I had no knowledge of this. Your Honor, I said, my voice suddenly different. Stronger. Clearer. If I may approach the bench. Everyone stared at me. The confused old farmer was gone. In his place stood someone else entirely. I walked forward, not shuffling now, walking with purpose, with authority. I'd spent 35 years walking this same path, to this same bench. Your Honor, I said, looking directly at Valerie Winters, I believe it's time to stop this charade. Recognition flashed across her face. Her eyes went wide. Clarence? Hello, Valerie. The courtroom erupted. Monique jumped to her feet. What is happening? I turned to face her. What's happening, Monique, is that your father isn't a confused old farmer. Your father is Judge Clarence Thompson. I served in this courtroom for 35 years. I presided over cases right where you're standing. And for the past 6 weeks, I've been playing a role, letting you dig your own grave. And you've done an excellent job. Darnell's face had gone grey. He knew. In that moment, he knew everything was about to fall apart. I pulled a folder from inside my coat. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence to the court. First, we have the recording you just heard. Attempted witness bribery, a felony. Second, I have financial records showing that both petitioners are drowning in debt. $300,000 in credit cards, underwater mortgages. They need my inheritance to survive. I pulled out more papers. Third, I have documentation of Darnell Hayes' criminal history, a civil lawsuit in 2018 for real estate fraud, an FBI investigation in 2020 for wire fraud targeting elderly victims in our community. And fourth, I looked at Preston Cole, who was trying to become invisible. I have testimony from a paralegal named Keisha Morton, who will confirm that the power of attorney Mr. Cole just submitted is a forgery, that my daughter and son-in-law asked their previous attorney to file false documents. When he refused, they found someone who would ask fewer questions. Preston Cole started gathering his papers. Your Honor, I had no knowledge. I'm withdrawing from this case immediately. But that wasn't even the worst part for them. Your Honor, I continued, I also have evidence that Monique Thompson Hayes called my late brother Willie 3 times in 2023, attempting to convince him that I was mentally incompetent. She tried to manipulate him into changing his will, into giving her control of family assets. Willie refused. In fact, he was so disgusted by her behavior that he specifically wrote in his will that she was to receive nothing. I pulled out one final document. This is a letter from Willie, written 6 months before he died. He knew something like this might happen. He knew that greed might make my daughter do terrible things. So he left instructions. If anyone ever challenged my competency, this letter was to be read in court. Judge Winters took the letter, read it silently. Her expression hardened. Mr. Hayes, she said. Mrs. Hayes, stand up. They stood. Monique was crying now. Real tears this time. Darnell looked like he might vomit. The petition for guardianship is denied, Judge Winters said. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation, attempted bribery of a witness, submission of forged documents to the court, and Mr. Hayes, based on the evidence presented about your prior criminal activities, I'm recommending a full audit of your financial dealings. She looked at me. Judge Thompson, I apologize that you had to go through this. Don't apologize, Valerie. They needed to show the court exactly who they are. And they did. Monique reached for me as I walked past. Daddy, please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't mean... I stopped, looked at her. My only child, the daughter I raised alone after her mother died. You laughed at me, I said quietly. When you walked into this courtroom today, you looked at me and laughed, because you thought I was too stupid to understand what you were doing, too senile to defend myself. That's not a mistake, Monique. That's who you've become. I walked out of that courtroom. Antoine Mitchell, the deputy clerk, caught my eye and nodded. Respect between old friends. Otis followed me out. We stood on the courthouse steps in the morning sun. You did good in there, Otis said. Willie did most of the work. He knew. Somehow, he knew this would happen. What I didn't tell anyone in that courtroom was what else Willie's letter said. The part Judge Winters didn't read out loud. The part she showed me privately after the hearing ended. Willie had written, Clarence, if you're reading this, then Monique has already shown you who she really is. I'm sorry, brother. I know you raised her better than this. But sometimes people get lost. The inheritance I left you comes with one condition. Use it to build something that matters. Use it to help people who can't help themselves, the way we always wanted to. And maybe, just maybe, if Monique ever finds her way back to the person she used to be, there might still be a place for her in that world. 6 months later, I broke ground on the Willie Thompson Legal Aid Center, a place where people in our community could get help with legal problems they couldn't afford to solve on their own. Tenant disputes, family law issues, small claims. The kind of law that changes individual lives. The center opened a year after that courtroom hearing. We hired 4 lawyers, 3 paralegals, set up a fund to keep it running for the next 50 years. Darnell Hayes was indicted on 16 counts of fraud and forgery. He took a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison. Monique wasn't charged. The DA said there wasn't enough evidence she knew about all of Darnell's schemes. But her law license was suspended. She'd been practicing family law, using her position to help Darnell identify vulnerable targets. She lost everything: the house, the cars, the life she'd built on credit and lies. Last I heard, she was living in an apartment on the South Side, working as a paralegal, starting over. She never called me, never apologized, never showed up at the legal aid center. Maybe she was too ashamed. Maybe she still blamed me for everything falling apart. Maybe she just didn't care anymore. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing I haven't told anyone. 3 weeks before Willie died, he called me. Said he needed to tell me something about the day Monique's mother passed, about what really happened. But he never got the chance. He had his stroke the next day, and whatever he wanted to tell me died with him. I found his journals after the hearing, boxes of them in his house. I've been reading through them slowly, carefully, looking for whatever secret he was keeping. Whatever truth about my daughter's past might explain how she became the person who walked into that courtroom. I haven't found it yet, but I keep looking, because maybe Willie was right. Maybe people get lost. Maybe there's still a way back for Monique. Maybe there's still a chance she finds the little girl who used to sit on my lap while I read her stories. The girl who wanted to be a lawyer so she could help people. The girl who believed in justice. I don't know if I'll ever find out what Willie wanted to tell me. I don't know if Monique will ever come home. But I know this. Every person who walks through the doors of the Willie Thompson Legal Aid Center gets a fair shot, gets someone to fight for them, gets the justice they deserve. And every time I see someone leave that building with hope in their eyes, I think about my brother, about the 40 years he spent helping people, about the legacy he left behind, about the inheritance that meant something bigger than money. That's the real inheritance, not the land, not the dollars, the chance to do right by people who need it most. Willie knew that, and now so do I. Thanks for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe. Have you experienced something similar? Share your story in the comments below.